All right. Did you want me to press go?
I already did.
Okay.
Call the meeting to order at 1:00. Right now, we have Haley, Tyler, and myself. Lindsay will be here in a couple of minutes. So, since she wasn't at the last meeting, she was there, I guess, as a volunteer, but as a board member, she wasn't. So, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve March 3rd's minutes, meeting minutes. Need somebody to second me.
I second that.
An agreement.
I third it.
All right, all in favor? Okay. So we'll go ahead and sign those.
Okay, I got this signed. Is it Lindsay with an A or Lindsay with an E? E. Okay.
At least that's what I wait. Let me check. Hold on, I have it
I think
written
it's
down.
Lindsay with an E too, but
It is.
okay.
I
And then
love
I printed off of one for your binder.
Thank you.
So the top one is the.
Didn't even need to print it. All right. My pen. Gotta get my brain together. I think that we will be having Lynn Chambers join us later on today during the meeting. Not positive though.
Chicken scratch.
That is the way. All right, I'm gonna go put this in Corinne's office. Text it in as well. All right. I don't have any community comments, so. Oh, slamming into tables. Good there, unless you guys have any that have been brought to you that you want to bring up. I'm gonna skip ahead just because I need Lindsay here for this part. I guess, well, okay, I'll ask you this since you're here. Right now, you're using your Gmail. Would you like to continue using that for Park Board business?
If we could do a separate one, I think that would be better.
Okay.
Than,
All right. So I can set up an Outlook for you as well.
Okay.
Just because we do have to store our email and park correspondence for 7 years, which is why I have the park chat. I mean, most of our text messages that I send to you are park business anyway. So, did you get your shirts?
yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. I figured you weren't home when I knocked or you guys were busy, so I left them on your door. All right. So shirts have been dispersed to all of the board members and park staff. So, well, I guess technically I think we're supposed to call them contractors. Been calling them park employees, but Monica, Emma, and Marilyn all have their vests. And then I think I hear Lindsay, so I will wait on the rest of this because she should be in here in a minute. You guys gonna sit in our gallery?
Sit down.
Or they can go over there as well. Ben's over there too. And then I have you sitting next to Tyler over
Okay.
here.
Hey, Sissy, you should go. Sit down either in the chairs or in the room over here.
Ben's over there. He listens to videos about how to make instruments. All right. So we are already live streaming, just so you know. There's cookies too if mom's okay with it. You can put your stuff on the chair for now. That way you don't forget it. Alrighty. So we just approved the minutes for our last meeting, but because you weren't.
You can just keep talking.
Okay. So we approved the last meeting's minutes. Something that we discussed was that, we had not been doing that properly, so we're supposed to make motions to approve them in our meetings. And the person that makes the motion has to be somebody that was at the meeting. Since you were not a park board member yet, we went ahead and signed it, and then at the next meeting from this one, we'll have a spot for you on there to sign. The next thing I wanted to discuss, so I'm gonna set up an email for Haley on Outlook, and I need to set one up for you. Something I didn't have a chance to go over with you is because of transparency laws and ordinances, we need to store all of our communications for 7 years. So in the event somebody requests, information, have it available. So I'm gonna set you up a separate Outlook email that will be just for park board business, and that's where we'll send like minutes that have been typed up or any interactions that we have with local businesses. We'll want to be sure to do it through those emails. And welcome. This is your first official meeting as a board member. So, all right, budget overview. So last year we had some ruptured pipes at the park. And I did not realize that we had not received that invoice yet. This was before Leslie stepped down. And so we got an invoice for that. It was $313. I might be a couple cents short on that. Corrine is going to be paying that out of our maintenance fund. For our maintenance fund right now, I'll kind of go over the information for that. So we have the 2 reimbursements for the accounts that we use to make our posters and flyers and stuff. Cleaning supplies from Menards, business cards for Haley, Tyler, and myself. We'll get business cards made for you as well, Lindsay, once we have your email set up. And then we've got that invoice from Jeremy. We had keys made at Gilman's for all of our staff to make sure we had enough copies. We had another Menards supply order ×2. I've estimated Monica, Emma, and Marilyn's wages into this. And then I also estimated, based off of what Ben told me, the cost of oil and the filter for the lawnmower. So right now we're sitting at $3,514.57 for maintenance costs for the year that we can utilize. And then we have our donation fund, which after our Walmart order for lunches that we are doing for spring cleanup, the shirts and vests, which will come out of that fund, since those are mostly utilized for identification with kids. Banners for the park events are dying to donate with Clues Brews added in there, movie permit costs, band costs, we're sitting at about $7,716.75 for that, so. These are just estimates. I can actually make a copy if you prefer.
I saw it right. This is the one that we have in maintenance fund, right?
Yes,
Okay.
don't include these bottom ones because those are things we're gonna
Okay.
talk about today.
Okay.
All right, so lawnmower is going to be maintenance by Ben. He's going to replace the old oil filter. Utilities is gonna be going out to sharpen the blades, I think next week. I did put a little note about, KPW's Easter egg hunt that's coming up in the park at 1 p.m. So if that's something anybody's interested in, that'll be going on. And then Clues Brews, like I said, they did a dime to donate for us April 3rd. They raised $329.47 to go to the park donation fund. That check's been given to Kareem. Spring cleanup, we're doing it in conjunction with the Western Boone Little League. They have been given the contract to utilize ball fields, and Matt's going to bring that back to me on Saturday. We did end up having to do a rain date for Saturday, so spring cleanup will take place at the park Saturday, April 12th from 10 to 2. We do have lunches that were ordered. This year we spent a little bit less. We did $219, which was, I think, $140 less than what we did last time. Everything's pre-prepped as well, so I don't have to prep anything this year, which saves me time. And then this year for our giveaways for spring cleanup, Sacred Rock Creations has donated some items. Kim and Shell's Creations, Rayflower Creations, and Rayflower Creations is who does our shirts and vests and stuff. And then Milky Way and Titus also donated gift certificates for a free yeast donut or a free small cone again this year. So those are all people that have donated for that.
Are we still doing spring cleanup on the 26th?
So yeah, we'll get to that because that was going to be trails and then the pollinator garden, but we might actually just focus on the trails. So the AARP grant proposal was submitted in time for the deadline. We find out if it's approved in May. Here's to hoping. We do meet a lot of the criteria and looking at historically what they've given before and what projects. I think that we're looking at issuing for that. We did request a little more in anticipation of them awarding a little bit less. So we'll see how that goes. The farmers market sponsorship and vendor overview. So I need help in vendor outreach from another board member. Primarily, it'll be via email or telephone. I have a list of other businesses that we still need to reach out to see if they're interested. If any of you are interested in that, let me know. Okay.
How long is this? How long do you have?
Kind of figured that would be a you thing. I do not have it on me right now. I can pull it up and email it to you.
Yeah, because I'll need to contact these businesses with the official email.
Mhm.
So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'll set up the official email and then I'll email it to you and I'll text you probably login information. You can just use password and stuff. I'll just set up a random general class code for it.
Yeah, I can tell you have to lower your voice, please.
All right, so our current sponsors for the farmers market, we ended up getting more sponsors than I had planned on, guys. I don't know how many of you guys know that. So Stalcott Metal Manufacturing and the Fraternal Order of the Eagles were the initial sponsors that we discussed. Additionally, Home National Bank has donated to that fund, and then Hendrickson's International, they've expressed interest. Sarah Fairfield, or not Fairfield, Peterson, the former town council president. She's still a town council member. reached out to me because she works for Hendrickson. They have to add us as a vendor on their paperwork. And so we're waiting for the approvals on that, but she's going to be having a donation sent to us for them. So we're just kind of waiting on that. We are not going to add them to the banners until after we receive the donation. So if anything, what we'll do is we will, we'll have it printed on vinyl like we're gonna do with the movies for the movies in the park, Tyler, and we'll just have you add it onto the banners. Movies in the park sponsorship. So we got even more sponsors than expected with that as well. And it led us to be able to add additional movie showing dates. So we added September, that's not right, it's not September 9th, is it? No, it's September 27th. Sorry, you might want to fix that on the paper. And October 31st, we were thinking after Halloween throughout town, teens like to roam around and do their own thing. And so we thought we would do a showing after that so that they have somewhere to go and celebrate.
What time do you think you'll be doing it? I guess what time.
Yeah, that'll be something that, I mean, it's gonna be at dusk and after all of the so. Movie permits have been requested through Swank and they have been approved. That's for a total of $1,583.60. That does not include the Ilio movie showing since it has not been released yet. But the estimate for that is about $276, which is what the others are. They range from about $250 to $276. So social media marketing is going to begin this week. For that, we can only use the approved images from Swank in all of our marketing. So they've sent me the link to pull those images from, but just so you guys are aware, we cannot post any other photos from those movies as, you know, an example of what we're doing. The sponsors for movies in the park include Wright Gallery, Home National Bank, Eternal Order of the Eagles, Clues Brews, Stalcott Metal Manufacturing, and Airyton. And then the equipment has been ordered and received. We've got sound projection and the screen. We are gonna have to do, at some point, we are gonna have to do a trial run with everybody setting that equipment up, just so that we're all versed in how to utilize it in the event like Tyler or I are available. It's pretty straightforward and easy and user-friendly, which is awesome. And it's all pretty portable, which I really like. I know that Swank will send movies a couple days early so that we can do a test run of those movies. So we might end up needing to do that as our trial run, just so that we can all set up. Pizza King also has agreed to donate 10% of all of the concession sales to the park donation fund. So they will be doing concessions for us out of the concession stand. If possible, I still need to talk to Matt about that this weekend, but I don't see why it would be an issue. And they are going to take 10% of everything that they sell and put it back towards the park. Movie dates and showings. So May 10th, we've got The Wild Robot. June 14th, we've got Paddington in Peru. July 5th, we've got The Goonies. August 9th, we've got the Minecraft movie. September 27th, we've got Elio, which is still unconfirmed because it hasn't been released yet. And then October 31st, we've got Halloween. banner update, I asked Tyler to reach out to the company that he works for that's gonna be doing the banners for us to see if they might be open to a discount in exchange for putting their company logo on the banners. They have agreed to do that. Banners are gonna cost us $350 altogether. So we should have those ordered hopefully end of this week, beginning of next week. It just depends on when Corinne's and that's when she works from home when she can.
So after donations, did we make money or break even on the movies, or did we have to spend some?
Pretty much between all of our donations with Movies in the Park and banners and sponsorships, we ended up pretty much breaking even. We still haven't gotten the orange fencing for the park for when we do events, so there's still some materials that we haven't purchased, which is why I say we probably broke even. But as of right now, where we're sitting,
Did we want to make a profit?
yes, but we're still looking at adding vendors to the market, which is another thing we need to consider because with vendor fees. That does help and go back into that park donation fund so that we can make a profit and continue using that funding for park programs.
Because since you said you added 2 more movies, because we had an additional funding, did we still want to do those movies? If we wanted to do a profit, that's what I'm.
Yeah, we absolutely, I think, the big reason why I added those 2 dates is because those people in particular, that was what their donation was for Movies in the Park. And if we didn't use that funding for that, then I felt like it would have been unethical to hang on to it.
Okay.
So, and because the movie permits ended up costing less than we originally thought, because we were thinking they would be $400 a piece, $276. That allowed for us to not only have the additional funding to add more movies, but also help with the Movies in the Park, the vinyl cost that we'll need to put the removable vinyl on the banners. So it ended up balancing out really well. My board grant. Okay, so I did not have time between the AARP grant submission and the My Board grant for round 1 to apply for the My Board grant. I did not have the mental bandwidth or the time. But My Board has opened up their second round of grants. So we need to decide because it's been opened up, the submitting state that we need to have our application finalized no later than August 1st. It'll be reviewed by the Community Impact Council on August 28th, and we need to decide if we want to apply for a grant for patching the trails, which I'm kind of thinking might be the primary objective here. I know that they need to, at least the south portion definitely needs to be repaved, but it's a micro grant. It's not going to be enough to fully repave that area that we need to. But at the very least, if we can patch them until we can get that funding, I think that's something we should consider. But another thing that's been brought up about maybe using that grant for is replacing the wooden fence line along the trail in the areas that we've got dry rot on those fences.
What would be the grant that you would look for, to include the repave in that southern trail?
That would be a different grant. I need to do more research into a grant that would cover that cost. We need to get quotes. Technically, depending on the cost of the job, we would need to get at least 3 bids on that. So that's something we can look at. I would like to look at that as a next year project.
Yeah.
But I do know, here's kind of where I'm coming from and what I'm thinking. I know that a lot of people have brought up frustrations about the state of the trail and the pavement itself. And we now have a large fissure on the north trailhead towards the front there. I don't know if you've seen that because I don't know if you've been out there lately. I personally think if we have to, for the time being, make the fencing work out there, we've already been doing that. I think that's a lot lower of a cost to make the repairs as needed than getting out there and getting some of that trail patched up to the best of our ability. I think financially, it would make more sense to utilize that funding for something that would be more expensive. So I don't know, what's everybody's thoughts, comments, questions?
Just saying how busy you are, if we were to patch it, I haven't walked the Civic Trail in a while.
We would have a
So-
third party patch it.
Yeah, but I'm saying your time spent looking at grants, writing grants, submitting them.
So my board actually, sent me the grant directly because I was already in touch with them from the previous grant, that was forwarded to me by them. It was technically forwarded by the EDC. And Maddie Love, I actually had, I guess I didn't bring this up at the last meeting. I had a meeting with Maddie Love, who's in charge of the grant program for my board. And she is not a part of the selection process, so she was able to let me know that she is willing to overlook our grant, and just like take a look at it, make some suggestions. But since she's not directly involved in making those decisions or anything like that, she can do that.
So you're saying it wouldn't be too difficult for the grant?
No, honestly, I think this one's a little less exhaustive than the AARP one, just because the AARP one, it wasn't like a copy and paste format like my board is. It was like 50 or 60 individual questions between check marks, filling out up to 5,000 characters.
Okay, so yeah, it's.
And I have
Sounds like
time
something
to
we should
work
do.
on
Yeah. And you're saying it'd be better to use this grant for patching the trail?
I think it would. I don't, Haley, what's you guys use the trail a lot, and I want your input on it.
I think that it would be better spent patching the trail as well. I think as far as use goes, the surface of the road is more important than the fencing. But yeah. And more costly and difficult, I think, to fix.
Yeah. That's a big one.
I don't want you falling through the fencing again, but
Has town council, that just reminds me, I'm sorry, did town council say anything about the last meeting that you went to?
I have an update for us coming up.
Okay.
That's
All right,
why
I'm
this
sorry.
is an
Oh, I
unusually
see
long, it's an unusually long agenda. I'm sorry, guys.
I
It's not
see it.
usually 3 pages, I promise, Lindsay. Did you were gonna ask another question?
Yeah, just, I guess with the grant, I think about like, oh, we put money into patching it and then next year we rip it up. But if it's all covered by a grant, then it's not necessarily a concern, because that's the same way I think about my house, where it's like, I don't want to put money somewhere if I'm gonna tear something down a little bit.
Well, and I mean, I don't think that we're guaranteed to find that much funding next year. It's just a lot of grant. Like, so I was looking into and doing some research on other grants that we can utilize. And DNR has some different trail grants that would fall under like the trail repairs that we need to do. But the application season is already closed. It seems like that's something that's beginning of the year stuff for them. I don't know. So we had a state of the tourism meeting with Suburban County, which is basically our tourism, our county tourism group.
Yeah.
And something that was brought up was the state is cutting a lot of funding, including to some of those programs. So I don't even know if those grants will be enough to cover that cost at this point in time. I don't know what amounts they're looking to award. It may not be something that we can do next year. And unfortunately, I mean, on one hand, yes, I agree. It sucks to patch something and then potentially redo it all again. But at the same time, I feel like it buys us time.
Yeah,
It buys us time to find something that will cover that cost, which will be significant, and to get those bids that we need.
that sounds good.
So, any other comments on this? All right, so, I personally I'm gonna make a motion that I apply for the grant specifically towards patching the trails. Does anybody else second? Okay, all in favor?
I,
I was watching you on the TV.
All right, so I have a note there of that then, and I will make sure that that's what I type it up for. All right, next order of business is the update on the restroom project at the Lions Park. So I talked to Corrine, and actually this number is incorrect, Haley. It's 65 and 66 for this one. Okay, Merrill's Construction has given us a quote to have a fixed building placed at the Lions Park for restrooms. That quote came out to $65,000. This does not include the cost of running water, sewer, and electric lines there, which we will have to work in conjunction with utilities on, obviously. Another option that was suggested by Corrine, after speaking to the Zionsville deputy mayor, is Zionsville purchased a restroom trailer that was made to their specifications. And it can be either in a fixed position or it can allow us to move it to the park for events when we do have more people in the park. And she said that might be something that we should consider. I kind of need to get everybody's thoughts on this. So one of the things, the restroom trailer being built to our specifications would be about $66,000. And I have some mock-ups here if you guys want to take a quick look that Corrine sent over. These were the ones that Zionsville got made, and then Corrine also got a unit quote for it, with a general idea of what it would look like. I will send the quote over to you guys with more specifications. I'm just gonna show you guys for now the pictures of what the ADA restroom for Zionsville looks like. It does have a ramp access, so that's something else to consider. And if you guys want, I'm really sorry it's not on the slideshow, but you can X out and just click on images to see, and I'll pass it over to you.
I think I saw the,
Oh, I think
That
you
email,
have
yeah.
the email, yeah.
so I saw that one. I looked along.
Can't use her tablet paper?
That's the outside of theirs specifically. Now, the other thing is, that was brought up is, okay, let's say we set it up primarily to be a fixed restroom at the Lions Park. Not only could we, oh, that's the warranty information. Not only could we move it to like the Tom Johnson Memorial Park if we have events coming up we need to, but something else Corrine brought up was, of course, if that's the case, then we have to consider dumping it. So when it's at the Lions Park, we can have lines ran so that it goes straight into the sewer system. We don't have to worry about dumping holes. But Derek Babcock, he's an officer here now, and I don't know if you know him, Lindsay.
No.
He also used to be on the park board, but he is looking into, he has to get a dump truck anyway for one of his jobs where he'll have to pump. And he did offer to do that at a discounted rate for us, so he would be able to use the dump pond here in town instead of us having to hire an outside third party that would then have to travel to Zionsville or Lebanon and have hired us.
Those are all my questions then.
So, I mean, realistically, we would have a water hookup at the Lions Park. We would still have a sewer hookup at the Lions Park. it would have an electric. But if we wanted to move it, we could detach those hookups, take it up to the park and have Derek pump it for less than a third-party company out of town.
I lean towards the mobile or the trailer, just for the fact that the movies really pick up, and if the farmers market really takes off, then you have more than what, 3?
I think it's 2 restrooms per stall, well, it's 2 in the men's, it might be 3 in the women's.
But I mean, if you have a lot more foot traffic than what we're thinking, or about what you're thinking, I guess.
The
Then,
only thing is, sorry.
that was basically it.
Hi,
My
Lonnie.
thought was that the first thing you drive into town and the park's right there, first thing that everybody's gonna see is this trailer restroom, depending on where it's at. So I would feel like a fixed built restroom there would be like, it would look better driving into town. If that's gonna eventually become like our center part, everybody's gonna try past and see it. So I do see the usefulness in having a trailer.
If you put the trailer on the back, on the
Well,
north
we
side,
would be putting it on the north side too, so it'll be on the back side, and the only reason, we don't have space throughout the rest of the park to really put it anywhere else.
That's what I also am wondering about, is like, will the pavilion be knocked down?
No, the pavilion's staying, we have room on the north side of the park.
For
For
just the
either a
restroom, or
small,
what else do you think? I guess I'm trying to visualize.
we're not
what
putting,
needs to be-
as of right now, we're not putting anything else in the Lions Park. Partially, so this was something we discussed previously, but with the main road right here,
Mhm.
and then also that road that leads out of town, going, what is that, east to west, or north to south. And then also having a road that enters and exits east to west, both of which have a lot of traffic. And it being a smaller park, we were concerned about safety for children, and possibly installing park playground equipment just might be a safety concern. We don't want something happening and somebody flying down that road and.
Yeah, so you guys thought maybe about using it as part, but no.
So we'll keep it, I think that we are allowing reservations at the pavilion. Knights of Pythias will still be utilizing that space for their, chicken
You said that big grill,
barbecue,
right?
yeah,
So
the
that's
big
staying.
grill. And that's all staying. We will still utilize it. So we utilized it last year for Holiday on Main Street.
Mhm.
And we would do that again this year, just because having all the buildings there, it actually provides some rain coverage when it's chilly out versus being at the park and just, that one.
Yeah.
So we'll still use it for events. We'll still allow reservations at the pavilion. We'll still be doing, I think Shalom House. I had somebody come in that was asking about this. I don't know if they're gonna continue doing it or if they plan to start doing it out of the library. I know they do in the winter time, but they usually pass out lunches for the kids in the community during the summer there. And in the winter time and spring break, I know they use the library. So I think last time this was brought up, the general consensus was we didn't mind if they continued using it for lunch disbursement during the summer, because kids, accessible foods, that's kind of our prerogative, is children's programs and community programs that serve the entirety of the community, not just one demographic.
Where are we getting the money to do this?
So that is the next thing. Corinne has had a meeting with Katie Reasoner, and I actually got to meet her today. She is the connection that we have with Eli Lilly, actually. And she thinks that Eli Lilly would be willing to fund this project and invest in that. So,
I think I would prefer if they do.
yeah, well, yeah.
I think that a permanent structure is more of an investment in the town than, like, I just don't know, like, I would
I don't
be
know.
very interested in like standing in one of these trailers and like seeing, you know, because like maybe it's really nicely done, but maybe it's not, you know?
Well, and I
That's
definitely, I feel like the permanent structure, I feel like for us to get to that point with the farmer's market or movies in the park, Tyler, I do feel like if we were to get to that point, it is not gonna be any time in the near future. And it's possible that by then, you know, we might end up having funding to expand the bathrooms at the park, which do need to be redone. They do need updates. I mean, not immediate or pending,
Yeah.
but I do think that's something we can look at down the road. I personally don't know that I care for the same thing that you were saying. I think that having a permanent structure would be more aesthetically pleasing, and I think it, like you said, it would be a better long-term investment. Eventually, trailers are going to have wear and tear and
Oh, yeah.
usage and breakdown. And that does kind of, I mean, I already use my own personal vehicle for park board business. We don't have a park vehicle or truck to use.
Okay.
And I mean, yes, we might be able to have the utilities move it from time to time, but you know, they're also very busy and we do rely on them heavily. And I don't want to add one more thing
I
to
do
that.
believe my husband knows Katie Mason.
Yes, he does.
I believe this, yeah.
He does, yes. I actually looked that up.
You did, okay. Yeah, so starting to make connections everywhere. So we've heard that name. So.
So what I'll do is I will let Corinne know that I think it sounds like we're all, unless Tyler, are you
Are you convinced?
No, I don't care.
I think it sounds like we're all in agreement then that maybe a permanent structure would be a better idea right now. And down the road, if we want to invest in something temporary or upgrade the bathrooms at the park, that's something we can look at. So I will let Corinne know, and I will also send out an email to Katie with the estimate that Meryl sent.
Do you have Katie's name? Is it
Katie, and then Reasoner, Reasoner. And really quick, I'm gonna kind of just throw this out there real quick. This is Miss Lynn Chambers, everybody. She is one of the 4-H leaders, and we do have her on our agenda here. We're coming up on it. So ridiculously longer meeting than usual, getting prepared for spring or in summer. So I'm sorry.
Totally agree.
And I'm Sarabi. I'm the one you've been speaking to.
Okay.
This is Haley. She's our secretary. And then we've got Tyler Smith and Lindsay Damas.
Hi.
And Lindsay, it would be a good time. Is it Damas or Damas?
Demas, yeah.
Demas.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
so sorry.
It's either or. My husband gets a little French, and so he likes it.
I've been saying mass because in my mind,
It's usually yes, Demas, but
I mean, also, I'm
When
pretty
people
sure
ask,
you
I'm
are
like, oh.
Catholic, so right,
Okay.
it's like in my brain.
no, it's just mainly he just like to accentuate the Frenchness.
Okay, so we prefer Damas, but we're not.
Yes.
Okay.
I will remember that. All right, so next up, Katie has been in touch with me and Corinne quite a bit. But they have reached out about a volunteering opportunity. So they have roughly 50 operators that are going through training, and they are looking to do a community volunteer day to help with team building. And this is why I said I was holding off on the pollinator garden thing. So the best date for them would be April 30th from 2 to 4 p.m. And I was kind of thinking about tasks that they might be able to help with that could help with that team building and help with some of the tasks that we do have. And I was kind of thinking, as long as everybody else is in agreement with this, I'm free that day, so nobody else has to be there if they don't want to. I preface all that. But I'm kind of thinking maybe we should utilize them because a majority of them are going to be male. They are going to be working together, and those pots that were previously on Main Street are heavy. Like utilities will not move them again for us. Heavy.
Good thing I gotta work.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, we'll have 50 volunteers willing to come out and do this team building exercise and back to the community. Why not utilize them instead of doing that on the 26th? On the 26th, we can just go ahead, do the trails and focus on that and be done. And then on the 30th, we will have all of these volunteers that are willing to help out.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that's a
Is
good.
everybody okay?
I will be in Tucson, starting the 29th of April and going until the 3rd of May. But that sounds like an amazing opportunity.
You said to what date of May?
The 3rd.
All right. So sounds good. I'll confirm that with Katie and let her know that April 30th is fine and that we will meet at the Pollinator Gardens. The other thing that if we have time when they're done with that, that we're gonna do is we're gonna have them go up to the Lions Park and we need to remove that fencing at the Lions Park. It needs to come down. I need to know a good time to have you go up there and see if you can remove the Lions Park graphics from the rail car. Because
Is that real for ours now, or you can
Yes.
still it? Oh, yes.
we need to get the Lions Park graphics removed. Don't look at me like that, Tyler.
I quit. I'm gonna start purging y'all.
I don't have an official letter of resignation, sir. Okay, so next up we have BCIC, so the Boone County Invasive Co-op. I have the surveys. I am going to be emailing to everybody for you guys to look over. They will be here Tuesday at 3:30 to discuss any other questions we have. Town council had some questions that I don't think I was really equipped to answer, and they might be better suited to. So they're also going to be here, April 21st for that town council meeting, just to answer any of their lingering questions. If we have any questions and we can't make it to that town council meeting, you can email me the questions and I can bring that up to them, or you guys can go in or come in on Tuesday to meet with them. I definitely would recommend that, because last time it was just me, Monica, and Emma. If anybody is here and available the 15th, and wants to go out on the trails with us, they're going to help pull garlic mustard and treat some of the poison hemlock, while we talk. And I think it might be a good time for some of our board members that maybe aren't familiar with invasive species, to just kind of see what we're talking about. And I will say now, the invasive species on the trail are extensive. I discovered in all of this that we have not had a trail survey at all since acquiring the trail. And it is bad. I think Haley can attest to that. I mean, it's to the point where we're gonna need to look into grants to bring in arborists for some of the species that we're dealing with. The trees of heaven are just out of control. And there'll be more information in that email about what trees of heaven are, the spotted lanternfly, what to look for with that. I have reached out to DNR, but another thing is BCIC will set up a weed wrangle date with us where we can get volunteers out here to help us treat some of these invasive species. They are talking about a fall date. I have brought up to them, so Lily's Global Day of Service is September 25th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And Katie said she has roughly 500 volunteers throughout the county that she is going to need to find volunteer work for on September 25th. So I am pushing with BCIC for that to be the date that we do the weed wrangle, because I mean, we're gonna need a lot of hands on deck. We're basically gonna need to go through the trail chunk by chunk by chunk because it's just so bad. So we will see, but I think BCIC is loosely on board for that.
So
Yes.
okay, so they're gonna be here Tuesday the 15th at 3:30. Where is here? Like, where would I show up to see them?
I'm gonna meet them initially at town hall.
Okay, so if I come up here, okay,
Be in the seat that you're sitting in.
all right.
Right there. And Grumpy's seat. All right.
In the wrong spot.
I don't want to sit in Grumpy's seat.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh. Okay, any other questions about BCIC? Okay, moving on, circus update. We have received the lovely yellow folder from Culpeper and Merriweather. Woo-hoo. Everything is set to go for the circus. And with the circus, they have outlined marketing information in here. We have a couple of free promotional tickets for free promotional tickets for rewards for children in the community. And then I'm guessing within the week, because they're supposed to have mailed it out as of today, since we are 8 weeks out from the circus coming to town. So I'm guessing in the next week we'll receive the pre-sale tickets and the promotional signage for businesses. I know Pizza King's willing to have some. I know that the gas station up the road has agreed to sell some. And then I'm thinking we will approach Titus Bakery and Milky Way just because we do have a relationship with them and we already utilize them. A lot of people go in there.
We can put something out at the Eagles too, and if you want to talk to Gary while I'm setting up, you can probably sit out there and sell to the people who come in.
That's a good idea, yeah. All right, so just some updates on that. I did talk to Smith Trash Services because we do need a 4-yard dumpster for them so that they can remove all of the animal waste from the park and make sure to clean up and leave the space better than they found it. They will have a dumpster available at that time for us and they'll move it to the park overnight. On the date that the circus is here, which is June 5th, they will actually essentially be camping out in the park, from my understanding, because they have to make sure everything is secure. Obviously, they have their lions and their tigers and all of their equipment, and they need to ensure that it is secure and safe and their animals are well cared for. So the bathrooms at the park will be open overnight for them. June 5th.
2 showings.
2 showings, I believe, I have to double check, I believe it's 5:30 and 7, or it's 5 and 7:30. It's written down somewhere. So that's what we got there. Town council update. We'll go into this and then I think we'll jump over really quick to you. So town council update. I spoke to Monica and Emma. They were willing to compromise at 7.5 hours a week a piece instead of 10 because after speaking to Corrine, realistically, $5,000 with where they're at with the general fund is not going to happen. I went in front of town council last Monday. Grumpy wanted time to discuss with Corrine some more on some other options. However, I am now, so at that meeting, it was suggested that we utilize our park donation fund for the 2,500. However, I shared concerns about misuse of those funds because they were donated for children's programs in the park. And I don't feel like using those funds to pay park contractors is appropriate. I think that might be a misuse of funds. And it sounds like Jeff Wolf also concurred with that thought process, and so did Corrine. Now, something that was brought up to Corrine as a potential solution after talking to Grumpy was that we pay the park program directors seasonal pay of 2,500, and they would redistribute that 2,500 to being used to pay for Monica and Emma's additional hours. However, I
Get it
think
back up to 10.
no, to 7.5. We can only afford to pay 5 hours a piece out of our budget right now.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's what you're doing there.
So now I'd like to propose a third option that I just discovered this morning at the Eli Lilly procurement meeting that we had with the chamber and everything with them. I brought this up to Katie, and Katie said she might be able to get us the funding for 5,000 to actually bring them up to 10 hours so that it's not creating undue stress on the town. So I need to send an email out to her and discuss that with her. I think we have a little bit of time. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just starting off the season. And I can talk to Grumpy and Kareen. I have brought this up to Kareen, but I can talk to Grumpy about this as well. But if Lily is willing to assist us in that funding, I don't see why anybody would necessarily on council be opposed to it, because at this point they are concerned about their current budgets. And if that is not an option, or Lily declines and says, hey, 'cause, I mean, Katie can make the introductions, she can make the suggestions, but at the end of the day, she doesn't make the decision. So if Lily does not decide to do this because, you know, they're doing the bathrooms or whatever other projects, we need to be, as a board, collectively thinking about and considering other alternatives that we want to take for at least bridging that 2,500. Would we like to potentially pay the children's program director out of the park donation fund? I personally would opt not to do that. And the reason why is when I came on, that fund had money in there that had been sitting there for a while untouched from Andrew Moody's tenor. I do not like the idea of not having some sort of buffer for children's programs in that account, because I think at the end of the day, if we get to a point, any point, where we see budgetary cuts, which is very possible for 2026 from my understanding, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room to continue developing and implementing the programs that we are currently working on doing. So I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on that. I would like some preemptive thoughts. I mean, this isn't a decision-making moment, but it is something we should. Haley?
So the budget cuts for 2026, the possible budget cuts for 2026, is that coming from our town or is that coming from the state? Possibly.
The town.
The town. And what is up with that?
I cannot speak too much on that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
These are just concerns I'm hearing from the pipeline.
Okay.
That's what I can.
That's what the
that's
big
all I
boys
can
say. All right.
There's just certain things that I'm not. It's not in my wheelhouse to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're there yet. And hopefully by town council bringing Jeff Wolf on to consult with funding and things like that, and all of our different accounts and what should be coming from what and what can be coming from what instead of other places like the general fund. You know, hopefully Jeff Wolf is a really great investment to the community, into the town, and helping kind of situate that. I know I've met him. He seems really wonderful. I know that Kareen's been working really closely with him, so hopefully that's not the case. But it's always something that we should be prepared for.
Mhm.
Unfortunately,
I mean, they're definitely in the air with just with the current political climate. I do feel like it's just like a zeitgeist of budget cuts
I
throughout
know,
the nation.
and then of course we do have state budget cuts
Yeah.
that have come along as well. Like I said, with like the DNR grants and also tourism grants and things like that. Oh, she can use that. So I mean, unfortunately, it's just something we really have to start looking at. We're gonna have to continue crowdsourcing funding for children's programs and really pushing for that I know there's a lot of people in the community that do love and want to continue seeing programs and things like that. I do feel like it is part of our obligation to the community as a community funded park and board. You know, it's our job to make sure that things are accessible and affordable and that we do the best that we can. And I think it's important that we just keep trucking along on that path.
Yeah.
We can't make predictions into 2026, but I do know it is something that has been brought up
Yeah.
loosely. So,
Um,
do you have any thoughts on park board funding or?
The second suggestion of, using the park donation fund to pay for I mean,
Well, we haven't officially voted on it
Yeah.
yet.
oh,
Park,
for the
park
coordinator.
director.
the
Yeah.
director, there we go. I know you're worried, then there won't be enough next year in reserve in case we get cuts.
And that's my thing. I want
But
to
it's-
make sure we have something in reserve. And the other thing is we can shift some of that funding into the investment account, to accrue interest. And I will say the town has a pretty sweet setup with interest rates through the local bank. So that does allow for some help, but at the end of the day, it's still not.
So then, it would be good to just focus on this, just get their pay sorted out and then. see what happens
Okay,
next year.
I will.
And if that means we have one of less program.
I mean, I definitely think that's something we should consider too. One of the things I did do is we do have the park program survey. I'm gonna continue leaving that open to the community and I'm going to continue kind of looking at that. And I think that we should, this will be our first year doing as much as we are, but considering after seeing like the outcome this year and what the interest levels are at the end of the year, we'll do like an end of year park survey.
Okay.
And kind of seeing, okay, should we cut one or two programs? What was the attendance rate for that?
I was
What,
gonna ask you
what-
what our success criteria was, a lot of the things that you're saying.
we want to see what our interest level is for certain things. And that way, you know, the things that are a very popular event for community members we can build off of and expand off of, and the things that maybe don't have as much attendance or as much success, we can retire for the time being and focus our efforts more on consolidating, okay, what events do we want to do and do we not want to do?
Yeah.
I will say next year, I have a feeling the farmer's market will run very differently. We'll probably only do it one day instead of 2 days. And we'll definitely need to look at how many days, like, are we gonna do it every other week? But I think by having it Friday and Saturday this year, it'll give us a good idea of participation on either or day as well, not just for vendors, but also community members coming out. I am predicting personally, I think Saturdays are gonna be more popular than Fridays. But we will see with time, and if that is the case, then we'll have to consult about next year and go from there. All right.
I guess in relation to that, is there, looking into that second option, could you see how much we would end up having left over for next year if we decided to pull those funds out?
As of right now, no, because the estimate that we have, accounting for everything that we have ordered, everything that's gone into the account, the bands that are playing. Like I said, we still haven't gotten like the fencing, the temporary fencing for the park, and some other like maintenance things that we need to address for safety at the event itself.
So we wouldn't know how that, pulling that money out would affect.
I don't think that we would know that, I don't think that we would know that until I would say June. Just because by June, that'll have given us one full month, or well, one full weekend for the farmer's market to see, okay, is there anything that we're missing that we need to have to make this a safe and successful event. I'm hoping that the answer is no, but in the event that we do need to implement something else for safety, we will have a first aid kit and everything set up there as well. So we'll just kind of, I think that we should wait until June before making that estimate on where that budget would be. Do you have any comments, questions? Any others? Okay. So really quick, I'm gonna jump ahead here. So Lynn is here. Lynn and I have been speaking about the Main Street planters. So they were replaced last year by Leslie. I did not know what size the planters would be. I knew that Leslie was considering replacing them. I didn't realize the decision had been made or that they had been purchased. And of course, this was at a time when we were operating. I mean, Leslie had just had me come onto the board. She's been doing this on her own for a long time. She's very overwhelmed. So I'm sure to some extent that just was one of those things that was, it seemed minor and was overlooked. We didn't really discuss it. But we are looking at issues with those. So 4-H does the gardening for them, which, by the way, Lynn, this is from Corrine. She wanted to donate it for plants and soil that you guys use in the planters here in town.
Yeah, because we, thank you.
So I know that there have been issues with people hitting the planters on the sidewalk because of how low they sit. Of course, there's also, not just Lynn, but other businesses have brought up that they don't like the size of the planters. They're not large, they're not visible. And you know, part of that is the beautification of the town.
Yeah.
After talking to Corrine, she's concerned about replacing them from our budget because, I mean, we did spend about $300 on all 10 of those planters. They were about $30 a piece.
Good heavens.
And they were just purchased last year. So I told Lynn in my free time, I am willing to type up letters to businesses on behalf of 4-H and the park board. Maybe we can get some of these businesses to agree to pitching in, you know, $65 for a new planter that's raised. I did send her a planter that I thought would be a good fit after talking to Corrine. There are some things like between talking to Lynn and then also discussing with Corrine and getting her wisdoms on what she thinks. You know, we want to stay away from wood because eventually wood deteriorates. We do want an average height of like 30 inches. Of course, we need to look at size and depth to make sure that they're not out there trying to water them every single day. As you guys can see, Miss Lynn here just had oxygen and is also, I mean, the planters out there are so short.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that's like for her, trying to get in there with the kids and help them. So I think those are all things that are reasonable as to why those would not work. These are the planters I was kind of looking at. They're very similar. They're a galvanized steel. They're very similar to the planter beds that we would be looking at for the community garden project that I had already talked to you guys about. And they have a 1 foot depth for the bed itself. And they sit at about 30, 32 inches, and they're about 2 feet long. I think long-term, they might be a good investment. Two of them is $100. So we'd be looking at basically $50 per business. But the reason I say 65 is, I think that we should put an additional choice in that letter for businesses on, hey, if you'd like to further assist us in soil for these garden beds, we would appreciate an extra $15 for that, however we end up wording it. But Lynn, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Lynn, do you have anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Well, there were I loved what you picked. By the way, I'd like to have some at my house too, so. But
Well, and hey, $100 for two of them.
I know.
I feel like that's a lot more affordable than some of the other ones we were looking at.
There's, with all of them, there's an issue, always an issue, you know. If you've got the great big ones, the deep ones, you have the issue of soil. You know, although there's a way around that. There is a way around that.
Like a rock substrate.
Well, I have water tank gardens at home, and they're 500-gallon water tanks. And I put styrofoam in the bottom. Yes, thank you so much. Ground barrier on top of that, and soil on top of that. Hi, so sweet. I love you. You're so cute. So that solves it. I can grow everything, carrots, tomatoes, anything I want in those. But they have good 18 to 24 inches of soil. So they don't have to be watered very often, even in the driest times.
So would 12 inches be enough?
Well, we have our kids' families take a week all summer long, one family after
Okay, and
another,
then cycle.
and water 3 times a week.
Oh, okay.
Now, that takes a minimum of 10 gallons of water per day.
Now, where do you guys get your water from?
Well, they usually bring it from home in gallon jugs.
If I would like to suggest, because this is something else we've talked about with Monica and Emma with them taking care of the garden beds in town. There is a spigot in the girls' restroom at the park.
Okay.
And if they have like jugs that they already use, they can always just fill them up in there. If it's
Right.
going to the Main Street planters instead of utilizing their own water bill. If you have anybody that, because I know that you guys do have lower costs for your kids to make it a little bit more of an accessible program.
Sure.
So if you have any families that are facing that
Yeah.
need, that is something that you guys can do.
Okay, thank you. We kind of look after them a little bit, you know, to make sure that everybody can participate to their, you know, as much as they can. We have a community service project every month of meetings. Sometimes it's collecting cans to go to the food pantry. Sometimes it's collecting clothes to go to Goodwill, or May is the planting of the flowers. And we do maintain them all season. Unfortunately, this fall, I was sick, so I was unable to empty these planters.
Is that something that needs to be done?
Well, I said yes, and we always in the past pull out the old stuff, just leave it as it is.
So if
And-
we were to get businesses on board with
Well-
doing this, we could pull them and at the same time transfer the soil to the new containers.
We thought about having, well, we can clean them out, it's all right, but, we thought about having a contest, for the businesses at Christmas time to decorate their pot, the pot that's in
Okay.
front of theirs, and maybe, you know, like, the bank ladies might like to take the pot that sits down there and decorate it, put a little tree in it, or, you know, something. And then we could have a little contest, not necessarily a prize or something, but we did think about that, 4-H related, but town could do that as well.
Well, we do have a holiday on Main Street and something that we found was an issue with the window decorating contest. Because the bank can't participate in that
Right, but they,
because of their security needs for the windows. That's just
Sure, but
so like doing something like the flower pots might be a better
yeah,
option.
they can do that, easily, because it's outside away from the, you know.
Right.
So, well, the main thing we have to consider about the pots is the stability, the depth, and the accessibility. We have children that are third graders to high school seniors. So usually a parent is helping with the things. We have our planting the first Thursday in May if we have pots. It would be nice for them to be as tall and as deep as they could possibly be.
So if you liked the ones that I sent, and as long as the board all thinks that they look acceptable, what I can do is I can draft up those letters and drop them off to businesses this weekend. And hopefully, I mean, they were pretty quick to respond for like movies in the park and stuff like that. I imagine $50, $65. I know like Stokey's will probably, John will probably just end up handing me cash or a check right there. So, I mean, does anybody have concerns with the planters that are suggested?
I think they look like they might tip over.
That's what my.
I was concerned about somebody like Wyatt riding his bike and not paying attention, riding into it and busting it.
And they're not super deep, which
No.
The depth is an issue.
What I really liked about the previous ones were the fact that they were so big, they were like right there.
We're not gonna be able
No,
to do
no.
anything like
I'm
that
just
for
saying,
the size
it
that
was
we
nice
need.
that they were very visible, those older ones.
Yeah.
Um,
We
So,
didn't have anybody running into them either. I tell you what, of course, I worked
Let
with
me-
Cynthia's,
mhm.
and our little old ladies drive up on the sidewalk to get to the door. And they did turn that pot. It was like, oh my gosh, they just knocked over the pot.
Oh,
And that's happened twice.
okay.
So we've moved it back away, so.
so how about this? I will look into a couple other options and send them to the park board for consideration. And I'll see if I can find maybe something that's deeper depth wise. So there were some options that had like base, like shelves on the base that kind of like locked the legs into place. If that makes sense, like a little shelf. The only concern that Corrine had with that, Lynn, is that dusting it off.
Right.
So I think I did see a couple with like metal bars instead. That might be something that we can consider is if we find something with a deeper box and something with like the metal support bars. I'll have to take a look at that.
There are,
if somebody could like
Tractor
lay them down.
Tractor Supply.
Well, and the other thing I was gonna suggest too is if we need to, I mean, we're gonna have to get some cement anyway, because we're gonna be moving the bench from the Memorial Garden since they've been having issues presenting colors up there. And we're going to need to remount that into the ground. So it is possible. I mean, we could look into using the extra cement and doing like a couple of small cylinders of cement at the base of the legs so that it's nice and hefty on the base too.
But then would it look good?
I mean, I wouldn't imagine we would do more than like this
Were you
much.
saying like cement surrounded?
Just like a small circle around the legs, enough to weigh it down basically. Like taking a brick and putting it on the leg
I
of a
don't
tent.
know that, I mean, it's not gonna be like a slab of concrete.
No.
It's gonna crack and wear.
I
don't
think
know that
the
it would
weight,
last.
the weight itself is gonna. I mean, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna have to compromise on some things.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at. I mean, I've been trying to have this conversation with multiple parties, and the thing is the things that somebody else might be willing to compromise that we may not. The
Yeah.
reality is, and I know you guys haven't seen this, and it is a level of frustration for me, so I don't want you guys to take this as if I'm frustrated at you. Because the situation in general is, one, the cost of the planters, and two, there is almost nothing on the market that meets our needs.
I
That
don't even
all
know
of
what it
us-
looks like now.
oh, go take a look.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm trying to think of it too.
I mean, if you guys want to bring one in and show it to the owl for the community, you can.
These things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the.
No, those are Koreans.
The one
On Main Street. They're teal, the plastic ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least they won't fall over, but yeah, they are not.
They're not acceptable.
Could we do? I don't know. I don't.
And I mean, I would say when we replace them, we should reuse those in the community garden or maybe along the Lions Park Pavilion, just to continue beautifying town so that we get use out of them. But here's the thing. It needs to be about 30 inches high, which is about where this desk sits.
Yeah.
Okay. It needs to be deep enough that watering 3 times a week is feasible and reasonable. It needs to be large enough because currently the width of those is not wide enough to really get flowers in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at all those factors,
if we could-
and it cannot be wood.
Can we build?
No,
I
not
was
with,
wondering,
not
like,
with the
can
cost.
we do 88?
Is anybody into
And-
pottery?
Okay, but here's,
we still like make our own. I don't know.
we still have a lot on the agenda, guys.
own.
We still have a lot on the agenda, but one of the things that we were talking about, resin pots and like some of those larger pots that we're used to seeing on other main streets, we're talking over $1,200 for one of them.
What is the budget?
Well, we're asking town businesses to pay for this, so we need to be feasible and reasonable in
Yeah.
that too.
So what would be like a project?
I would prefer not to have to ask them for more than 75 to 100. I'm sorry, go
It's all
ahead.
right. Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Mhm.
First of all, Ollie's, no, whatever, that place at Lafayette, they have those ginormous, pots. Unfortunately, they're concrete. They're about $100 and some a piece, but they're huge. That's not necessary, but, you know, that's kind of what we were promised to begin with, something huge and gorgeous. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
So you said it's
Okay.
at Ollie's?
Yeah, at Ollie's.
Where is that?
Before you get to the mall,
Is it, no, what town?
Lafayette,
Lafayette?
Yeah.
Okay,
they had those, but what I'm going to say, but I have to leave.
Yeah.
Is that check Tractor Supply, check, Farm Supply.
I have checked Tractor Supply, Menards, Farm Supply, and Gilman's.
But look at, because I found something at Martinsville, galvanized stock tanks, round,
Mhm.
30 inches tall, and they were like $65 a piece, 67.
Yeah.
Something like that. They would be perfect. Again, they were so deep though, you'd have to, we
Those are
could
like
do-
the.
Where was
long
that?
ones?
No, they were just round.
We'd have to do the styrofoam in the bottom of those.
Well, yeah, but that's.
That's fine.
easy peasy, you know.
Where did you say you found those?
Well,
Where you saw the galvanized stock
I
tanks?
probably wiped it out, but maybe not.
And you can always text it to me too, because you have my number. And what I'll do is I'll go to both of these locations and I will take some pictures for the board
Yeah,
members,
yeah.
and that way
Well,
we can get the ball moving on
You
it.
know what we need, and, you know, and
That's
then
not for me.
I'm just gonna say,
That's 17.
do what you think's best for us, but just, you know that we have to maintain them. And if they're too large, can't afford the flowers. If they're too small, we can't put the flowers in them that should be there, like viney things and tall things and, you know. And if they're too shallow, the water becomes an issue.
So did you guys like the previous planters?
Well, we
yes,
can't-
liked them.
You like the?
We can't reuse them and move them before you
The
ask.
Lily guys.
They're not, no, that's not even it's not
I'm just
just
saying to
an,
save us money.
it's not
we
an
can always
us
paint them
decision.
something better.
Well, what would
That's
it
not an
cost?
us decision, that is
No?
a town
Oh,
council
it's a
and a town
What-
decision,
why were
and
the last
there is
ones
a
removed?
general
They were
decision
timeless.
that they
Concrete
are
tile.
not to be removed.
And they didn't
They are
want
not to
them?
be replaced.
Well, no,
That
the
was.
let's say that to
not
the
just
bone.
council, but that
because she didn't like the way they looked.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
But they were tall and they were big and
Yeah,
they worked. They
I wish
worked.
I had, if I had been there.
There's been some conversations about that, but basically the answer I have been told on that is not happening and we are not to do that.
So we can't use the tiles.
No, but we could get new ones.
We could find
New ones.
newer ones that are a little nicer. And I think that was the general recommendation was you need to find something else if you're going to do that. But let's go ahead and table this for a later date. I will keep you in the loop and I will contact you guys more as I come up with information. But we still have more stuff that I need to get to on here, and I do have some things I have to do this afternoon actually for the park. So
It seems like such a simple thing and yet it isn't really, but.
I've been like slowly trying to pace myself on dealing with it just because of all of the intricacies, and I keep getting frustrated. And I keep thinking, how easy would it be if we could just do X, Y, and Z? And reality, we can't. And it's
Well,
just,
there is a small option of buying more expensive pots and only doing, say, 5 of them or 6 of them instead of 10. And then next year buy.
I think, like I said, I think that we need to kind of go back to the drawing board with some of the information we have now. And I will get a hold of you and I will make sure to talk to the board. This is the first time they're really hearing about this because I had not had a chance to talk to them yet. So, but give me until end of next week and I will get back with you,
Thank
Lynn.
you very much. I appreciate it. Like I said, we just want to make everything pretty. That's our main goal. And the kids are so proud of it.
Well, we appreciate that you guys do it in the first place. It's nice and it alleviates some pressure off of us for sure.
Sure. I've been participating with this project for about 15 years. So, and like I said, there's never been a problem until last year. So, not to criticize, no criticizing, but just, so hopefully we can get it situated that will just work out perfectly. There might be a tile place that you could buy pieces of tile.
Have you gone down to the pond?
I will look, like I said, I'll look into it. I do kind of have to jump ahead because I know
Sure.
Lindsay's gonna need to get going and we have some stuff we have to vote on.
All right, thank
I'm
you.
so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn.
you.
I will text you before next week.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna try to speed through this, but I will still check and see if anybody has questions as we go. Children's Program Director position, Veronica St. Clair was the one that applied. We did have a team interview with her. I know you weren't there for that. Do you have any questions? Okay. I make a motion to contract Veronica for the Children's Program Director position for the summer of 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
All opposed? Okay. Veronica is officially, I know that we kind of had already tentatively discussed it, but we do have to have it officially down, so. All right, shirts have been completed and dispersed, which we talked about previously. Vests have been made, volunteer vests, as well as Marilyn, Monica, and Emma's. That was $210 for, I think it came out to 10 or 12 vests, 5 t-shirts, 4 long sleeves, so
Less than $10 a pop.
yeah, it was about $10 a piece. And that's gonna come out of the park donation fund just because a big reason we're going to be having those is for identification at the park during children's programs. Our volunteers need to be identifiable. Feel like, unless anybody disagrees, I feel like that falls in the parameters of that.
I agree. Good use.
Yeah.
Okay. The park water fountain still needs to be fixed. Jeremy Young, I spoke to him today. He did find the specialized bit for that because it's a locking mechanism bit to deter people from messing with the water fountain. I think he's going out tomorrow to work on that. He thinks that it should be a pretty simple fix. Also, Jeremy has, after speaking to him, so we do have that outstanding $313 invoice from last year's ruptured pipes. After speaking to him, it sounds like he is not going to be charging us for. He's not going to be charging us for the winterization and dewinterization of the restrooms this year. So we will need to be sure to send him a thank you card for that.
Question though, real quick. When did he send his invoice for last year's?
I don't know. I just know it came across Corinne's desk recently, so I don't know if it was an oversight on the previous board president and not realizing that it hadn't been sent over, or if it had been sent over, it was an oversight and just emails and things that happen. And
I
it's not
was
very-
more concerned if he didn't send it over until recently, because then you kind of have cause if it continues to happen in the future to be like, hey, if you don't send your invoice within.
I don't feel like that's an issue though. This is the first time that that's been done and I don't think that.
No, I don't think this one.
No, I just don't think that. It looks like the invoice might have gotten buried in some emails because it was retroactively dated, so. Okay, bathroom door easement needs to be addressed. Marilyn brought up that there's been flooding in the women's and men's restroom from the rains that we've been having. Ben is gonna look into it and see if he can fix it. If not, we may need to look into further options for that, for sealing the doors properly. Fence needs fixed on the trail. Ben has sent me a list of items needed. Tyler, I'm gonna need you to go to Menards for those items. I will send you a list of them if you'd like. And then Ben will get those fixed. We already discussed everything with Lynn. The pole barn project, I'm gonna be working with Earl at Utilities to crowdsource funding for the wall on the pole barn. It's about $1,200 is the estimate he was given by the artist. It's the same artist that does the underpasses in Lebanon. I think that is something we should consider for next year as a beautification project, is possibly going to council and seeing if we can do something like honoring Turning a Blues Festival or the Kawasaki's Miami Tribe on the underside of the Big Four Rail Trail Bridge. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up as something just to kind of keep in our minds. We have a bat house that was purchased last year that we need to place at the South Trailhead, but also Corrine has donated a second one. Utilities, after talking to them, is willing to assist us in that because it's got to go pretty high up. And we'll have to do a little more research. I would probably lean on you a little bit more, Haley, for that to make sure we put it in an accessible area for them where they have swooping and things like that. Now, one of the things I'd like to propose is a purchase of an outdoor bulletin board for the park. Ideally, I think it should go over the water fountain into the brickwork between the two restrooms. This is kind of something like what I was thinking. They have a gently used one for $182 on Amazon. That was the cheapest price I could find. Oh, there's one in there. There's the little box.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking because we have an issue with signage getting torn down for events and stuff, that does have a lock and key on it. It's something we could easily install into that brickwork. I would like to make a motion to purchase that out of the donation funds since it will be used by park board members for children's events and updates on park events.
I second.
All in favor?
Um,
So I will notify Karina that, but I did want to get everybody's thoughts on that.
I called my mom.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to. We do need to get quotes to fill and fix the hole in the turf by the merry-go-round. I will send out information on the park program survey. But one of the things that was brought up in that park program survey was there was comments. Apparently, we had a kiddo last year that was pushing that merry-go-round and broke a bone, from my understanding, tripping. I don't know any further. Yeah, I don't know any further details because the surveys are anonymous. I did reach out to Matt to see if he knew anything about it, just because he's out there for Little League a lot. He didn't. I don't know the context. I don't honestly need to know the context. It is a safety hazard and it's something that we need to address. So, I will start working on getting quotes to fill that hole this season because we need to do that. It's pretty big. But I just kind of wanted to give you guys that update. I will be sending out information from the park program surveys to you, Haley, and you, Lindsay. I've already seen them, just so you guys can kind of see some of the input that was given on those. We still have responses coming in. Yoga in the park is scheduled with Sage Yoga to start on May 11th and May 31st. From 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. They are doing reduced drop-in rates since it is a community project of $10 per person. There are Facebook events with that. People can either pre-register or pay the date of. And actually, I'm honestly really surprised by the response we're getting so far. It seems to be pretty well received, and we actually have quite a few people that have expressed interest in it. So I'm excited to see how that goes. The date of the 11th is a Sunday, so we'll see. I don't know if they'll have as much participation that date. I will be out there that date just to make sure they know where to set up and what can and can be used, because they won't be utilizing the pavilion, since we will have reservations for the pavilion sometimes on the weekends that they are going to be out there. And I will not be there the 31st, but after the 11th, I don't see why they wouldn't be self-sustainable to set up and do what they need to on their own. Tyler and I will be out of town the weekend of the 31st. We have a music festival we will be going to, so.
Yeah,
We'll
well,
probably be out as well.
the yoga people generally pretty sedate.
Yeah, they're pretty sedate. They're pretty zen. I think that's the whole point. And then lastly, I do want to make a motion for reimbursement. So I now have a second phone line on my phone that I plan on transferring the service to the next park board president, so that it stays the same. It is a 765 number because I have the Alaska number. People did not want to answer a call from Alaska. They did not know somebody from Alaska. So I found it really difficult when dealing with park business to try to contact people with that number. I own the number outright and can transfer the service to whoever, and with phones nowadays being able to be compatible with more than one line, you don't see any reason to get rid of it if it's a line that we're already associating with park board business. I think it would make it easier in the transition too for new park board presidents to just utilize that number to continue with the contacts that we do have. And so I am asking for consideration in reimbursement of that for the last, I believe this dates back to January. I would have to look at the invoices, which I have sent, or I can send to Corrine if this does end up happening. But the line was added in December. It's 16 and some change a month. However, there was an activation fee. But I did get a discount on that because we have a veterans discount on our account. Yes.
I think if we're gonna vote to reimburse you for that, then we need to vote to say that that number stays with the park board president before we vote to reimburse.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm willing to make the motion on that. I think that this number should stay with the park board president.
Town council, do they have a separate line, like a business line?
Town council pretty much, you contact them through Kareem here at the office, and she has a landline for the location.
That makes sense.
So, and unfortunately, we just, I don't think that, 'cause, you know, something Corinne and I discussed when I got my tablet initially for work was, oh, hey, do you want to see if the park board will reimburse that, and that can just be carried, that can be owned by the park board? I told her, no, one, it was costly and I'm making payments on it. Two, I plan on using this. I have been using it for personal stuff and I don't think that that's appropriate. But with that being said, I don't think that it's feasible financially for us to like purchase a separate phone and set up a phone plan specifically for under the park board name. I think the transfer service is a lot more. Yeah, some people contact us via email. I actually do get people who reach out telephonically, whether to book a pavilion at the park or for business matters. But I think it serves a purpose to the community. And I think that having one phone number that just follows and carries through no matter who is in office would be the most responsible way of handling it so that we are not having issues with communication vendors.
Would another president though want to have it? Like, what would happen if they were like, I don't want this?
They could vote to just,
Disband it?
yeah,
Disband it, or, I mean, at the end of the day,
just cancel it.
cancel it, or if they're in a place where they want to purchase like a cheap cell phone and attach it to that and have that, they can.
Mhm.
But I would say that would be up to that board at that point in time. But I do try to keep all of my park communications through that number.
Yeah, so do you have to keep those records for 7 years?
Yeah, but it'll,
The like phone,
yeah,
or like any contact with text messages, or is it just emails that you have to keep?
emails and text messages, but that's why the group chat is now under my business number, not my personal number. I
Okay.
don't know if you've noticed
I
that.
did, I was just like, why is there two numbers?
Yeah,
Okay.
And that's why, it's because I wanted to follow through with that phone number.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the other thing is, thankfully, you know, it gives us an idea of how many minutes, hours, texts, like I can look at all of that on my phone plan.
Mhm.
I can tell you exactly how many texts I've sent just in the last month from the business line.
Yeah.
And it is significant, just so you know. So, I don't know. I think that that's something that we should consider. I don't see how it would be a disservice, if anything.
It's just like me, I have a work phone number and that the company supplies, but I have it all forwarded to my personal phone, but nobody has my personal number.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I think it also
And if
allows
you have
for
to keep a
some,
record of it anyways.
I think
Nice
it
that it's
also
like a
allows for
separate
some
line.
boundaries.
Yeah.
Plus, if you
Um,
want to be president and then sit down and get texts and calls.
Exactly, yeah.
And that is a thing. I can say that for a fact. That is a thing. Also, I think it allows for appropriate boundaries. When it comes to like my business line, if I see something coming through on that line and I'm not in a place or a time where I want to answer that call where I can, I know it can wait. And it allows me to set up a separate voicemail box.
Okay.
So like my voicemail for the business line versus the voicemail for my personal line, one can be more professional, whereas one is more my personal,
Yeah.
like that's my family and friends calling. So there is that.
Do you need a motion to second that?
I haven't even presented it. I don't think that I should be the one to.
Oh, you suggested, that's right. Doing
So.
the motion carried.
All right,
I'm
let's
a little
first
biased on that.
vote. I propose the first vote that the line stays with the president.
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and, okay. And then the second motion is to reimburse Sarabi $58.03 for that line.
Now, that includes the activation fee and the last, since December, the activation fee and then the $16 and some change, which, like I said, I think it's 16. And we do, you know, Tyler and I have a discount on our plan, so thankfully we save a little bit of money on that. But it's, yeah, it is $16.22.
Okay, I will second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Okay, and before we wrap up today, does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns, or unfinished business they feel they need to bring up?
I would like to look with you and just look around and see what the, like, yeah. So what is-
Honestly, if you want to do that and take that over, by all means.
I'm
There's one
afraid
less
if I
thing.
do that there's gonna be, so it's like $50 to $100 per planter is what we're looking at.
That's what I think would be reasonable and not cause undue stress to local businesses.
Okay.
Because the thing is we're asking businesses to donate those funds. We do rely heavily on them for a lot. And I don't feel that it is appropriate to
And there's 10
ask
pots.
for more and more and more. You know what I mean? Yes.
And there's 10 pots. And what is the size that she's looking for?
I can send you the dimensions, but a minimum of 30 inches in height.
Okay.
And I would say probably 48 inches across. 2 feet. Or circumference wise, you know what I'm saying?
Is Lynn's idea of maybe doing less this year and then doing a second purchase next year something that we would all agree upon? If that would mean we could spend a little bit more, like find a better design.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really kind of depends, because it sounded like you were trying to get the businesses themselves to pay for it. So if we can find something they're willing to pay for, it really doesn't matter if we do 5 or 10.
Exactly.
Or if, like, what if we find one that's like, each one is like 100 or 150, but we have 2 businesses go in on it and just
Yeah.
one planet.
Mhm.
And then we only.
Well,
get to do
and for
6
some
this
of them,
year.
we can do that because of where the pots are placed.
Yeah.
I think a big part of why we want to approach each individual business too, though, is we would like to, at least after speaking to Kareen, I think the idea and what I think would be great to be done would be to have like a little, whether it's like a planter, like signage that, you know, generously donated by Stookies or generously donated by Cynthia's or Pizza King, because I think that it's important that we acknowledge that those pots were purchased and paid for by those
This
businesses.
is,
And
this is
maybe
my
if we-
question. This is my question is more that than a grievance, but why is it our responsibility
To do this at all.
do that? Yeah.
Technically, beautification of the town falls under us, 1. 2, a reason why I think that we should be taking this on and dealing with this now versus waiting down the road for it to become a bigger issue is the fact that we, not necessarily us, as in this particular board, but we did replace those pots out of our funding last year
Oh, out of our funding. it was-
without considering or speaking to Lynn, from my
But
understanding.
none of us were even on the.
I understand that, but it's still
It's
a
our
board
issue
decision.
now. Yeah.
It's our issue now.
Why were they removed? The original.
Because they were an eyesore, and it was originally discussed with Lynn, from my understanding, about replacing the pots themselves. But then when it came down to replacing them, there was no conversation about what was needed or necessary before just purchasing them. And the ones that were purchased are the ones that we have here now, and we're seeing the issues with.
So they were the old drainage tiles And so plain concrete pots,
I can send you the information I have for further details on that.
so
And
who was the
just-
one that said it was an eyesore?
Thank you. I'll have to go into my records and pull up everything I have and send that to you.
Okay. All right,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay.
Anybody else?
If I find anything handy, if I'm bored at night, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'll send the specifications to everybody and the requests that Lakeland has, and then like what Christine and I have discussed and what I know from previous discussions, and I'll email that to everyone.
I would keep an open mind though. I know that she said 30 inches tall. If you find something for 24,
That's
27,
not her that's coming back with that. She was willing to, I think from my understanding, she got to a point where she might have considered something a little bit shorter. That is coming from me and Corey. For safety reasons, I do not think that those pots should be anything less than 30. Originally, we were looking at 32 inches. We need to consider our demographics of our community and the fact that people are driving up onto the sidewalk sometimes. And with those planters, they need to be highly visible from the hood of a vehicle. Something at 24 inches is not something that we can do. And also we need to consider we're the ones that at the end of the day, if these planters, if 4-H were to ever stop planting in them, it falls to us to do that. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that they're technically ADA accessible as well. Having something down here for somebody that can't bend over or stoop is not something that is accessible for our community members, especially with the demographics. And that's my big concern. I don't think having something that's 24 inches is gonna be feasible. And I don't want to get to the point either where we get something that's 24 inches. And 2 years from now, we're right back here having the same conversation. That's why I'm kind of pushing for, if that means we have to take a little longer and we have to utilize the pots out there right now for the time being. And we have to take a little longer to research and.
Oh, I think she popped herself.
Is there blood? What happened?
But, at the end of the day, I think we need to do it. We need to do it right. We need to look at this as a long-term investment that businesses are making into the beautification of town and be considerate of that. And I think we also need to consider the needs of any community members that are going to be utilizing these planters, visibility of them, stability of them.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yeah, I totally get it.
I'm sure that there's something within all of those specifications that we have discussed between what Kareem has brought up as concerns, what I have brought up as concerns, what other community members and business owners have brought up as concerns, and what Lynn also needs. I'm sure we can find something. Now, whether or not that will be this season, I don't know. But there's got to be something that's feasible and reasonable.
Is there, I'm thinking Eagle Scout doing making their own concrete ones as a project for us to our size?
I don't know, and that might be something that, an email can be sent out for that, and we can see.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a possibility.
And then even,
I know, I
they
told-
don't have to be concrete, and then maybe one year, the next year we have people paint them.
Well, and I told Kareem too, I was like, too bad I don't have a resin mold for a 36-inch cut, because at this point, but then, of course, resin is also expensive, so.
Girls.
All right, well, any further business before I call this meeting to adjournment?
No,
No.
All right, I'm calling this meeting to adjournment at 2:53 p.m. I'm so sorry, it was a long meeting, guys.
Have a good weekend.
Oh, yeah. I definitely thought, I was like, oh, this will be